We're back with new fallout from the release of the Epstein files. A top executive at one of the most prestigious investment banks in America just announced her resignation. Kathy Ruemmler will step down as chief legal officer of Goldman Sachs in June. Now, Ruemmler came under scrutiny over emails that suggest a close relationship with Epstein. In a statement before her resignation, a Goldman Sachs spokesperson said Ruemmler, quote, regrets ever knowing him. Meanwhile, survivors and accusers of Jeffrey Epstein continued to wait for answers and an apology after they traveled to Capitol Hill this week for Attorney General Pam Bondi's House hearing. And joining us now is one of them, Danielle Bensky. She was among that group of survivors. They're in the hearing room with Bondi. She says she was an aspiring 17-year-old ballerina when she first met Jeffrey Epstein and he sexually abused her. Danielle, so nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
I know it's been a tough week for you, and I want to play that moment again that I think was just so gripping for all who were watching this testimony when, you know, Congresswoman Jayapal asked you and the others who were in the room who were survivors to stand and asked, you know, Attorney General a few questions, including whether she was ready to apologize, and take a listen.
Will you turn to them now and apologize for what your Department of Justice has put them through with the absolutely unacceptable release of the Epstein files and their information? I am reclaiming my time, and when I reclaim my time, it is
Mr. Chairman, the gentlelady is reclaiming her time.
I'm not going to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
What did that feel like?
I mean, we've seen it from this administration a lot, even from the top, when we think about when the Transparency Act was passed with Donald Trump going on that rant on Truth Social. It's sort of the same in that there are real moments of missed opportunity here when it comes to empathy. Empathy for not just the people that stand there, but for survivors as a whole. And it was just one more, actually three more, because there were 3 times that she could have turned around in that room. 3 times that she could have turned around and just looked us in the eye for one moment and just, she didn't even have to say anything, just the sheer acknowledgement that we were human would have been enough, and she couldn't even do that.
Did you even feel seen by the Attorney General?
No, not at all. In fact, I think she did everything in her power to not see us. If a staffer would come by, she would lean her head back to talk to them because she knew that we were sitting to her right? So she would never look over the shoulder, or if she started to glance in that direction and all of us sort of like moved in on her, she would move her back, you know. So did everything actually to just remind us that we are nothing to her.
And yet we did hear her, I think it was in her opening statement and perhaps during other parts of testimony, talk about her 18 years that she was a prosecutor during her career and always putting victims first. How did that land with you?
I mean, if she put victims first, she would at least acknowledge our presence there. But, and I just, you know, this idea of like, I think she feels, and maybe not, but there's an admission of guilt if she has to talk about the Epstein world, and guilt on the part of like the DOJ releasing all of our information, all of our names, and you know, she's evading responsibility and evading any sort of sense of accountability with that repeatedly, and so I think that she wouldn't want to say that you know, take responsibility for it at all. And so I think that's part of why she just doesn't want to acknowledge us as a whole, and it just feels awful. It sits horribly with survivors.
There was a point where it seemed like she was saying, we welcome you to come and talk to us, and maybe this whole Epstein thing is not something that's in the past at this point. There could be possible pending investigations. It was unclear, but you've tried to reach out to the DOJ, right? And they haven't reached back?
No, never. So that's been something that we've been talking about for quite a while now, that the DOJ has not reached out. They've never apologized. They've never asked us for any sort of guidance or help. But something that I do want to talk about is she did say that there would be investigations and that there are investigations, which is the first that many of us have heard about that. So that is something we want to see more of, and we would really love to know who is being investigated, why. I feel like survivors are always the last to know everything. We usually see it come out on social media before, you know, and even if it's pertaining to our own stories. So that's been really a challenge. But we definitely want to see more investigation, so we hope that that is real and true. I also want to say that she said, you know, come on in, come to the FBI, come talk to us. But like, if you see in Massey's 5 minutes, he threw up there a picture of the 302 completely blacked out. That is us going to the FBI. We all have talked to the FBI. Yes, we have talked to the FBI. So many people have talked to the FBI. And they're, from my understanding, I believe it's from the FBI that the documents were redacted. So even when they go into these, there are 4 computers that congressional leaders can go and look at. And on these 4 computers where they have to schedule these tiny blocks of time, they basically are saying that there are things that are still redacted, even though they're saying that these are the unredacted versions. And that's because the FBI redacted them first. So you can't even, and through Massey's 5 minutes, we learned that one of those redacted faces was co-conspirator Les Wexner. So why is Les Wexner redacted on even the congressional reps' computers still?
Yeah, apparently in those documents, he was referred to as an alleged co-conspirator as they were investigating him. Of course, nobody else beyond Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell have faced charges, let alone been convicted. Maxwell being the only one who was convicted since Epstein took his life. I'm wondering, you know, because you mentioned all the redactions, and we also know the millions of other documents that were collected as part of the review that weren't actually revealed as part of the Epstein files release. Is there a specific piece of information or a specific detail you're looking for that you most want exposed?
I think we're all looking for different things, but I think, you know, as survivors, it all ties into the greater whole. When we were siloed and we were alone, you know, you're a piece of the story, but I think that when you start to piece it in and be part of the puzzle, then you start to see the full map.
Someone who had big jobs in politics is out of work. The former head of Paul Weiss is no longer the head of Paul Weiss because of his emails, where he seemed to be offering Jeffrey Epstein's strategy on how to delegitimize the claims of survivors and victims. How sustainable is it to not have any consequences or laws of gravity applied to Trump's cabinet?
I don't know. But I think one of the reasons that he can't allow for there to be any consequences is because it obviously shifts our focus to him.
Back to him, right. That's right. Like Lutnick went to the island with, whatever, 5 nannies and 3 kids, but Trump's in there 38,000 times.
Correct. I mean, and to be fair, a lot of the Trump mentions are because Jeffrey was obsessed with him, right? He collected news stories about him. The mentions, when people talk about, oh, there's so many mentions of Trump, that includes the word fragment D-O-N, which also could be found in the word don't. So I wanted people to take that with a grain of salt. But your point about Lutnick...
Don't being in there is not why Trump refused to release them.
No, that's of course not why Trump refused to release them. And if we put the focus on somebody like Howard Lutnick, who publicly said that he and his wife vowed in 2005 never to be in Jeffrey Epstein's home, which was next door to theirs, ever again, and yet the files show that they went to his island once for a lunch. If we are that focused on a single lunch, imagine what would happen if Howard Lutnick were to suffer consequences, because our eyes would automatically turn back to the person who has demonstrably much more extensive ties with Jeffrey Epstein, who is quoted in a near canon-like article about Jeffrey Epstein from 2002 saying, as we've all quoted on air multiple times, Jeffrey likes beautiful women, he likes them almost as much as I do, and on the younger side. And now we have that 302 document, the FBI's manner of memorializing an interview with Michael Ryder, who was the chief of police in Palm Beach in 2006, who is telling Southern District of New York prosecutors in 2019, I spoke to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump told me, thank goodness you've caught this guy. Everybody knew what he was doing. It was disgusting. And Ghislaine Maxwell is...
There is a no consequence aspect to this presidency that I think might be frustrating to some people. And Pam Bondi was literally sitting with her back to victims. That picture will go down in history as her legacy. The female attorney general, a woman who makes history by nature of having that job, turning her back to victims of sexual predators, child predators, and refusing to address them in any way, refusing to agree to meet with them in any way, refusing to even confirm that they are still looking for these predators out there. Predators in our midst.
Well, they're covering
in
up.
her midst.
They're covering up for the
sure.
They're redacting all of these lines. And yes, Pam Bondi, the defining picture of Pam Bondi's term will be her keeping her back turned to those women who were victimized by rich, powerful men and who they're covering for right now. It certainly seems that way. And just like with Kristi Noem, the picture will be her sitting there posing in front of human beings stacked like cattle, many of them innocent, as we're finding out.
And there's news on that.
And there's news on that.
These women are truly brilliant. They're brilliant in the way they have completely shifted the global conversation. Yes, credit should absolutely go to Ro Khanna, Thomas Massie, and other members of Congress, of course, and also to the political leaders in other countries who have been pushing this issue. Because the impact isn't limited to the United States. It's being felt in Britain and in other countries as well. I want to be very clear about that. But none of this happens without the woman, without the courageous woman who stood up and fought back for years, even when no one was paying attention, including politicians from both parties. We are still only at the beginning. Let me clear, no real deep justice has been fully achieved yet. But we're finally starting to see a small glimpse of justice. And that's because of these women, their media strategy, their political strategy, and the alliances they have built across both parties have made this possible. And look, some may strongly dislike the Republican Party, but they understand this has to be bipartisan, especially with Republicans controlling all three branches. If you want real progress, and they have handled it that way, pragmatic, focused, and precise at every step. Epstein and many of these wealthy, powerful men treated these women as if they were disposable, as if they didn't matter. They never imagined these same women would rise up and fight back like powerful loneliness.